All right, let's get into it. Well, it's Friday.
It is. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Warfighter Tobacco Podcast. I think I've said that 65 times now.
Yeah, right at it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we're not stopping anytime soon. We just got back from a trip down to Nicaragua, down to our factory, and a little tour of the country. And we have Dave and actually producer extraordinaire Justin. They were down there with me. And that was their first trip down. So I know the last episode was a little bit of a recap while we were at the factory talking about, a broad overview of what we did. I think we're going to go in a little bit more detail this time and then get, now that we've had a little bit of time for everybody's brains to kind of settle down with the sheer amount of information that was thrown at them. I think we'll be able to talk a little bit more clearly about how this trip went on this show, because it's a lot. Like your first trip down there, it's a lot.
Yeah. I remember our first trip down, or I guess I went once.
Yeah, you went once before me.
Yeah, it was a lot.
But that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and then
so it's like anything, right? Like you do it enough times. Like the first time you go skydiving, the first time I jumped out of a plane, I had tunnel vision, right?
Yeah,
I saw this much of it. But the last jump I was doing, I could jump and watch the airplane fly away,
right.
And kind of enjoy it and know more of what's going on. And I feel like every time I go to Nicaragua that I pick up more.
Your tunnel gets bigger and bigger.
And I can pick out better details and I retain the thing that I've heard 4 times now.
There,
like all of a sudden it's like, I actually know that because I remember it from the last time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. Like my first time, it was really cool bringing these guys down because it was like, I kind of got to relive my first time.
Yeah.
But like by giving that experience to them.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh yeah, I remember this. Okay. Hey guys, over here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got to experience that when I brought Michelle down and then the boys, and so being able to show people, for the first time what it's all about. And especially like you guys, like you're in the industry and to see, like I was talking to Justin about it. There's like 4 phases of this industry. There's from the seed to when they harvest it.
Yeah.
And then there's
you have the farms.
Yep. And then you have the processing.
Yep.
And then you have the factory that makes it.
Yep.
And then you have the sales.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're completely separate.
They're separate industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a handful of companies that are completely vertically integrated for all of it.
Yeah.
Right. Those companies been around for like 150 years.
Yeah.
And it's not because they like worked to get there. That's just what they did from day one because there was no other option.
But some of them worked that, like Placencia, right?
Yeah.
For the longest time, Placencia had 3 of the 4.
Yeah. They didn't have sales.
Right.
They just did everything else for everybody else. Yep.
And
then they started their own brand.
And there's a lot of farms where that's all they do is farm. There's processing where all they do is processing.
That's it. There's
factories where all they do is roll cigars.
Yep.
So it's literally 4 separate industries.
Yeah. But yeah, and then for newer companies to try to get into it and get that vertical integration, it is insanely hard.
Yeah, especially being a gringo.
Well, it's a huge cost up front to just put that infrastructure in place.
I don't know if it's possible.
Right.
You have to come in with equity and like.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Anything's possible, I guess. But
it's with enough money, anything is possible.
Yeah,
at least that's the government.
We got into the industry in the sales part of it, right?
But we're like working backwards.
But how would we have got into the farming?
Yeah, like I would. There's never one day in my life did I ever wake up and be like, you know what? I want to move to Central America and grow tobacco.
Right.
Like I'm out.
Or I want to process tobacco.
Yeah, like I want to turn green leaves to brown leaves.
Right.
Like I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't get used to that smell.
Oh, the ammonia.
The ammonia is just like.
And you get used to it.
Yeah, but it varied. Like
you know how it varies is when you go in there completely hungover.
I wouldn't know.
I know. It's
you do that a couple times. Then you walk in there sober and you're like, oh, this ain't bad.
Yeah.
I tried to get Justin. I don't know if you can pull up. We'll jump right into this. We loaded some slides up here. If you want to pull up that the tumbler room, they add moisture back into the cigars in the beginning process of.
But that's not even
process.
that strong of ammonia there.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Was it?
Yeah. They had the heat and the water going.
Yeah,
They opened the door and it was just a wall.
These are massive tumblers in these rooms, and they're all sealed off. They're all covered, with like a.
So is that after they come out of a Pelon or before?
So this is they receive the cigars, and they're in bales. Excuse me.
Yeah.
My coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, leaves.
They receive the tobacco from the farms, right? And it's already been dried in the drying barn, so it's pretty brittle.
They're in bunches.
Yeah. And so they pull them out of the boxes. They hang them on these. They add humidity or add water. Essentially, they rehumidify the leaves, steam. And then they stack them in pilones and let that process go. And it's not like they spray them down with water. They just fill the room with like 200% humidity.
Yeah.
It just,
So there can't be as much ammonia smell as like when
you couldn't walk in this room.
Really?
No.
Yeah. Like those
I went around the corner and I backed out. I'm like, Justin, go ahead and get a shot of that.
Oh,
like, I baited him.
He got me good. Like I've never encountered a smell that stopped me in my tracks. But my body was just like, no, you're not going.
Like
in
I would.
Did you not go to the gas chamber?
I would walk in a gas chamber over going in there.
100%.
Really?
Oh,
all
it was
day
like
long.
Because in my eyes, like
I've been in this before when it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they were doing different in the process.
This must have been when
they
they took it off of a Pelon.
Nope.
Then.
This is before.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. Those rollers, they'll spin at like
Yeah, and I know
3 or 4 RPM, and it's just they opened the door and I was probably 15 feet away, and I still was just like
it was rough.
It was definitely rowdy.
Because I've been in this before when they're doing this, and like their drums are spinning, and I walk right in.
Yeah.
No issues. Go all the way to the back, look at shit, take pictures, take videos, come all the way back out. So I don't know what was different, but it was different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got to go. This was in the processing facility. And we got to tour that. I think that was on like day 3, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
day 3.
And that's one of my personal favorite parts of going down there, because every time I go down there, I learn something new about the process of getting tobacco from a leaf that they just picked into a cigar. There's a lot of work that goes into that phase.
I think from a consumer's point of view, that whole processing portion is completely overlooked.
It's non-existent.
People think it goes from the field to drying barns.
Yeah. Oh, they just put it in. They stack it all together and they let it age for some years, and then they put it in a cigar.
Yeah, like that whole thing. Without seeing it, you wouldn't even know happened.
And like that part's cool, and the pilones are cool, and like the scientific process that leaf goes through is pretty cool. Right, those are the pilones, and they're just stacks and stacks, and they wait till they get to certain temperatures for a certain amount of time. And then they completely disassemble it, and they put the outside leaves on the inside, and the inside leaves on the outside, and the bottom leaves on the top, and the top leaves on the bottom, and they find a place for the middle ones to go, and they haven't said where.
So what they're doing is they add moisture, which you saw on that big wheel. Then they put them in here, and essentially they rot.
Yeah, it's like a compost heap.
Yep. And so that's what brings the temperature up. And so when you're smoking a Maduro, it's longer in the process of fermentation.
Like they don't actually rot,
right?
But it's
fermentation
the process of that.
Yeah, they stop it before it.
And they're very good. I don't know. And that's the start of some of the stuff they like to nerd out on. And it's like, okay, like at what point are you like, oh, flip it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like how long does that temperature have to stay where?
Yeah. Like if it gets 20 degrees more, is it going to turn into a pile of goo? And
right. I lift it up like, oh, no.
Well, and you can see on the pilone next to behind the guy that there's a clipboard up there. Yeah. And it's like day and time
and temperature
daytime and temperature.
So they go through there. Like, I don't know. I didn't look too close at the frequency, but I imagine it's probably every couple 3 hours that they'll probably run through there and check the temp.
It depends on where they're at in the process.
If it's toward the end, it's more often.
Exactly. When they first start it, they might check it at like every 12 hours, maybe every day. Like the beginning, the end of the day, just to see what it's doing to make sure it's heading in the right direction.
The fact that they know that like this particular leaf needs to be in that process for 37 hours and 15 minutes before it gets broken down and separated and that process.
Well, I don't know that they know that there's a certain time. That's why they use the temperature.
Yeah. They go off of temperature and visuals.
And like the rate. So the reason they keep track of the time and the day is so they can see the rate of the temperature increase.
Yep. But like the really cool thing about this is like, so those boxes you see in the background, that's the tobacco that just arrived.
Right.
And so they pull it out of that box, put it in the tumblers, and then they build these pilons, the big, huge bales.
And that's loosely packed tobacco in that box. But once they are processed and then they're put in an actual bale, they pack it down and they get
those boxes
100
are heavy.
Yeah, but they're big. Like an actual bale is like 100 pounds, but it's not that big. Like once they put it in the packer.
Yeah, they're I don't know.
Yeah,
this by this, and they're not like that tall.
Yeah.
Yep. But so the awesome thing about this is they know exactly how many leaves they have under the roof at any given time. How many leaves?
Right.
Right. Not how many pounds of tobacco or whatever. And it is the sheer amount of tobacco that's in there being processing is crazy. They were saying that each shift runs about 800 people in that factory.
I think I asked Gonzalo one time how many acres were in a pilon. Like, how many?
Yeah.
And I think we came up to like, it was like 2 manzanas or apples.
Yeah.
Or whatever they call it down there.
I have no idea.
But yeah, we kind of did the math on it because I was curious, like, how,
right.
How much of a field do
What's
I
it take
need
to grow enough tobacco to make that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we kind of nerded out on that one day.
Yep. But these are all wrapper leaves. Right. And so it's a similar process, but it's slightly different for binder filler. You do the, I mean, obviously it's the same process, but the time that's spent on the sorting and the grading is way less, right? Because you don't see the leaf. So if it has an imperfection, if it has a little tear in it or something, it doesn't matter.
If it's a different color,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right. But the leaf on the outside that you visually see, that's the one that it has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then depending on the size of the leaf, you can get more than just, so when one tobacco leaf, they devein it, they pull the vein out of the middle and it splits it into 2 leaves. In theory, you can get 2 cigars out of 1 leaf. If the leaf is big enough, you can get 4 cigars out of 1 leaf. But the sides are directional. So depending on what side of the leaf it is, depends on how you roll it, whether you start it from the left or you start it from the right. And when you put the wrapper on the cigar. And I mean, you won't notice smoking it. The only time you notice is when you're rolling it, because if it's the other side of the leaf, it's just not, you're like, oh, that's a weird looking cigar.
Well, you probably put the vein on the inside. Like
there's a top and a bottom of the leaf, and the top of the leaf is what you want on the outside.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that processing facility was really cool. We didn't get the normal guy, the manager that was usually there that gives us the tour. He had something else going on. So I'm glad I've been there enough, because we had the guy who actually worked there who didn't really speak much English. And we had Gonzalo, who, even though he says he doesn't speak good English, he speaks, I can get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he gets the point across. We understand it. And then me.
Right.
And so Gonzalo would say something. The guy who worked there would chime in with like the little English that he had. And then they all like look at me and I'm like, okay, so the rest of how this works.
Yeah. Because when we were there with the other group that we took that one time, we had the main manager for the whole thing, right?
He was,
and he spoke perfect English. And I learned so much on that trip.
I wish he was there, because I wanted to sit down with him again and go over it. Because like one of the things that I nerded out with him was processes and how he was improving processes to save time, increase production, and make their staff happier.
Yeah, like for example, they would do things. So instead of having to pick up these 100-pound bales, they would have like a cart or something.
And it was like little things that he was like, why don't you guys try this? And they try it, and it like speeds up the process like eightfold.
And it saves the workers back. They put them in the right positions to not get sore.
Yep.
So your neck's not all fucked up by the end of the day or whatever. Like they look out for their people.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I think he was.
It was like the only place in Nicaragua where I was like, oh, you care about the people who work for you?
There's quite a few. There's
like the factories like that, but you walk in other places like we spent a lot of time like exploring and talking with locals and people that live there and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that I learned while I was there, and this is just something that happens in that country, it's not just the tobacco side, and it's actually less prevalent in the tobacco side.
Yeah,
it's more prevalent like the people who run the gas stations.
Yeah,
and they're just scheduled. You're on the schedule for 24 hours.
Yeah,
you can't say no. That's your thing. Right? There's no like labor laws where it's like every 8 hours you need an hour break or whatever they are, you know?
So when Warfighter originally started, Placencia was rolling our cigars. And so when I took Michelle there, I wanted to show her where the origin kind of was.
Right.
So we retoured Placencia, and it had changed quite a bit since we had been there. And they did things like, before the shift started for 15 minutes, they would stretch.
Right.
Or whatever, and like they had, like the way they did provided childcare and all kinds of the big cigar factories and there's people that care about these people
big time,
and they do as much as they can to make their lives better, and it really shows. Like Esteli wouldn't be as populated as it was if it wasn't for a good work environment.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really would.
Yeah, and people genuinely, most people there seem happy.
Yeah,
it's not like.
But then now I'll give you a little. I'll pull the veil back and flip the coin for a second. Right. So we were down there. We ended up meeting this guy who has a factory down there, and talking to him, and just talking about what we're doing and where we're going and things we're seeing and blah 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 and all this stuff. And so I was just like, what brings you down here? And he's like, I had a business partner in a factory, and then I don't know what happened last week, but 80 people walked out.
80 of his 120.
Yeah, I only have 120 employees. He's like, so I'm trying to do damage control and figure out how I can keep my factory running right now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man.
Yeah.
And
he made him stretch for 2 hours before the show.
No, I guess his business partner is just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
They collectively were just like, fuck you. And everybody walked out. But I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't have any hair, but I would have pulled all mine out if that would have happened to me. I don't know how you're sitting here with a smile on your face smoking a cigar, man. Like, I would be working right now. But it's just different, there's not a sense of urgency.
Yeah, that.
But I appreciate it because it's like.
Now you say that.
So Mal and I were talking about it last night, and it's the difference between a capitalistic economy in a country that hasn't bought into capitalism yet.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a bad thing, but humans adapt very quickly to whatever the surroundings they're in to make sure that they're succeeding and growing and getting better. And with capitalism, the succeeding is I need more things. I need more money. Yeah. I need to do this faster. I should have done this yesterday. Yeah. Where in Nicaragua, or a non-capitalistic country, it's more like, well, we'll get it done, but I still have my family, and I have this, and I have that, and I have all these other things that are more of a priority than, whatever. Obviously, it's a much poorer country.
Yeah, but obviously, the first thing I learned when I went to Nicaragua was mañana doesn't mean tomorrow.
Yeah.
No.
Now, on the reverse of this, you see those people bust their ass for they'll stay late, work weekends to get shipping out.
That happened while we were there.
That's not because they volunteer to do it.
No, I know.
It's because they're told you're working, and they either do it or they don't have a job.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so different.
Yeah.
And there's very few things actually get thrown away. Most things get recycled. And what I mean by recycled is somebody else uses it to make something else that's useful to them.
Yeah.
Where here in the States, it's, that's got a scratch in it. I'm just going to buy a new one.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're like, oh, that's fine. She'll buff out.
For example, their packing material down there is recycled newspapers.
Or whatever else that's a paper good that they're not using.
Anything else. Yeah. We've opened cartons of cigars, and we've seen children's schoolwork or something, right?
Like homework.
The arithmetic from last week. Yeah.
And what do? We buy bags of new peanuts,
Yep. And we take the packing material that we get from them and we recycle it in the dumpster.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example, right? That is a crankshaft from what looks like a a V8.
Yep.
So I'm assuming it's like a Chevy 350. It's the most common engine in the world, right? The connecting rod, the piston rod is still on it.
One of them.
It goes through a sleeve, but on the bottom of it, they hook a plate that applies what's called a cliche. And that's when you get like a shiny foil.
So example on our Warfighter boxes, on the Garrison boxes, all of the foil.
Yeah, our cabinet style boxes.
The gold, bronze, and silver.
Yep.
This is
and
what
it's
they use
pressed
to
on using
press
this
into the
machine.
box, yeah.
So like one guy somewhere was like, oh man, we need to make a press so we can do this. And some other guy was like, I'll be right back. Brings in a crankshaft, a couple of sets of bearings, builds a thing for it.
I just noticed this, but that is a bicycle inner tube that's going around the thing for a belt.
Right. Yep. And then you have this electricity thing set up for heat.
Yeah.
And then it's just a manual wink.
Yeah.
Wink. Yep. It's so cool. Like, it's the ingenuity they have there is crazy.
Yeah.
There's a will, there's a way. Big time. But yeah, so
Also, we were talking about it, but like at the box factory, you can tell that like originally that building didn't have a second floor, but they needed more space.
Yeah.
So they just laid out 2x4s and created the second floor. That was cool.
yeah, it was interesting.
I'm
But,
pretty
like-
sure that crack right there is the outside of the building that
Oh,
you're
yes.
seeing.
Yep.
through.
Absolutely.
Yep. But totally like lost my train of thought of where I was going with it. So that's the box factory was pretty interesting. There was 4 pieces of equipment in there, I think. And that's all they used to cut the boxes.
Yeah.
And then they sprayed, they had, paint guns and all this stuff and sprayed. And this dude he was spraying a box. Yeah, this is downstairs is where they have the equipment. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of equipment.
So the
And some dusty.
Yeah.
one of the biggest, probably the most used piece of equipment. Well, I guess they're probably all used, but
The sander.
is the sander, the wheel sander.
Yep.
Like they'll cut it close, but everything is sanded to fit perfectly.
Yeah.
And that dude was the only one in the entire building wearing a respirator.
Yeah.
Like he was the only one.
Yep.
I think they offer all of the PPE, and it's whether or not they want
Well, they have it. It's
Yeah.
you can see it sitting around as you're
Yeah.
walking through. They
Yeah.
just choose not to
Yeah.
wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot to get footage of the guy that was spraying all the boxes because I was baffled because he had the boxes like right here and he's spraying this far away from it, like
Yeah.
a foot, and he's spraying. And I was just like,
Not even like a bandana.
oh my
Nope.
gosh.
Like we get upstairs, I see that, I'm like, walk by him.
That came out of the auto body industry, so it was kind of nice to actually get that smell again.
Right.
You know,
But yeah, we worked on some box stuff. We got I'm thinking that we'll see. We're still waiting on one more sample of it.
Well, this is a 1.5 year long project. We've been
Oh, I think it
working
was
on.
funny. I think I told you on the phone while we were down there. But when we were doing our dumpster fire box, we just couldn't get them to understand what we were trying to do. And like it's now I notice from like going there,
Yeah.
and I paid attention this time. There's not many dumpsters around there.
Yeah.
Like anywhere.
No,
they just
you're
have
right.
a trash truck that drives around and people come out and throw bags in the trash truck, and that's how they get rid of their trash.
Yeah.
They don't even have
Yeah.
like barrels they put on the side of the road.
Right.
I saw like
They
two
do, but
actual wheelie dumpsters,
Mhm.
and everybody else just put bags of garbage on the side of the road, and then the dude came by
Yeah.
and threw
They
the
have
bag.
55-gallon barrels, but they use them to burn the trash.
Yeah. But I'm saying like you don't see like in a parking lot or whatever, you don't see a lot of dumpsters
No.
hanging around. So I was like, okay, maybe they just don't know what a dumpster looks like, But it's funny when I was talking with Gonzalo at the box factory, and because they had like the different iterations of the boxes.
Yeah.
So he pulled one out and he pulls this out and he goes, this one we cut one forest. Then Scott said no. And so we make this one and we cut the second forest. And John says no. And then we make this one and we cut the third forest. So the fourth forest, this one is a good one. I'm like, Gonzalo, calm down.
Yeah. Well, Gonzalo, when I said, hey, take half the amount of material off and you take it all off. And I said, okay, put half of it back on and you put it all back on. You got a half.
Yep.
Half. 0.5, sir.
Yeah.
0.5.
And I learned that medio is the way to do half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from the processing,
Yeah, keep
this
us on
was-
track, Justin.
This cigar was oh my
man.
god.
Yeah, so we were at the processing factory. We were upstairs, which is kind of a secondary aging process, kind of, isn't it, John?
So up there, so they move the pilones up there, and it's the final stage. Because it's up there, is the next process after this is it goes into the deveining and sorting.
Yeah.
And so essentially, it was downstairs where the big tumblers were. That was stage one, and then as they start filling that room, they start moving the pilones after they've been there for a while into a different section, and then eventually they make it up here, and then they go to the next process, which is the deveining and sorting.
So we were upstairs. We were looking at some different bundles. They had one pilone open that they were kind of moving around, and the manager or manager's son, I think it was his son, wasn't it?
No,
Is it-
it was just somebody that worked there.
Okay.
It was managerial. Yep.
Gotcha. And we were talking, and he looked over and he grabbed this leaf and deveined it and just threw together a cigar for us right there on the table.
Yeah, he pulled. So the at this point the leaves are still full, so you have left and right sides.
Yeah.
So he peeled off the left side and he laid it out, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that'll work." And he took the rest of it and just started breaking it up. Right.
So it was
and about the same
single-
length.
Single.
It was
One leaf.
One leaf.
And he made that and then
So-
handed it to me.
It's an ugly ass cigar, but I love
But it was I literally, we smoked that and I'm like,
Yeah.
how do we stop this process right here? I want this flavor. It was so good.
It was arguably the best cigar.
But the thing, if
Do
you
you
look at
remember,
those,
was it Indonesian tobacco?
Oh,
if you look at the leaves, right? See how they're all different colors?
Yeah.
That's it. They're not ready yet,
Right.
right? It hasn't finished processing to the point where everything's been processed the same. So we could have pulled another leaf out of there and smoked it and be like, "Oh, I don't like that,"
Yeah.
just because it wasn't ready yet.
that's almost a barber pole if you look at it.
But barber pull from one leaf. But that shows that you have to wait until that entire leaf uniformly processes. And there's times, and if it's not, then sometimes it gets used. It doesn't really change the flavor much once it's towards the end of the process. And then, if it's not absolutely perfect, it just gets used as binder or filler.
Yeah.
The visual side of it, the flavor's still there, but the visual side is what makes it the wrapper. Yep. But no, that was delicious. Like I
was
wanted
so
to roll
good.
some more.
It was so good.
Speaking of rolling,
Yeah.
we did. So I kind of threw him to the wolves, right? So we got there late Monday. Didn't even go to the factory. Gonzalo met us at the hotel. We brought cigars. We had dinner, relaxed, chilled. It was a long travel day. We left the house at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
We got to the factory at 7 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a long day.
Yeah.
So that next morning, bright and early, we get to the factory. And what did we do that morning? We went through.
We did some work. We
Mm.
did a tour, and then we did some work.
We did first day we got there, before we we're looking to get any content. John just gave us the quick run through of here's the aging room, packaging, rolling tables, and we just did the
sorting.
quick walkthrough, which was honestly really nice. Is the guy that was pointing cameras and stuff, because I was like, all right, I know where the sections are now, so I can go from here. But it is incredible how they were it's not a crazy huge factory building, but they're nope, we're gonna make this work, and they make it work to perfection.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much the first day, and then we kind of laid out our to-do list for the week. John kind of was like, all right, Gonzalo, here's what we got to get done while I'm here, and we went from there.
Yeah. So in the process of that, because I think you guys rolled the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
We went to lunch. We came back from lunch. So in the morning, we did the quick tour.
No, we did we rolled right before lunch because they sat in the press while we were at lunch. Yeah.
Split it. Yep.
Because they need to spend 20 minutes in the press?
Yeah, 20, 30, depending.
Yeah.
A little bit. It depends on the shape and size and all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, roughly. So we went got there, obviously got our game plan for the week. And then we did like the quick dime tour of the factory.
Yeah.
Here, this is packaging. Here's the aging room. This is all the rolling. This is how they do it. One guy does this, then it gets put here, and then it does that. Here's quality control. Here's sorting. Here's storage. Here's the pilones. Here's where we hang out in the palapa. Went through everything. And then we got back, did a little bit more actual work, and then we started getting a little bit of content. And that was kind of like the trial for the thing, right? Because I brought everybody back there. We started filming, and I was like explaining how, one guy rolls binder filler and it gets pressed, and then the other guy does a wrapper, and they do certain things certain ways, and the glue and whatnot. Explained it all to them. And then we go back and I secretly talked to Gonzalo. I'm like, hey, I was like, I don't want to set up one of your guys. Like, I don't want to steal their table while they're working. And I'm like, can we just set up a separate table so we can have these guys roll? And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. And so we got a cigar that I know everybody smoked before. So we had that blend sitting there, and laid out in tobacco on the table.
Right.
And then we had one guy that actually they taught. So the factory teaches rollers now. So they have a core group that are very, very, very good. And when they bring new people in, they pretty much teach them like start to finish. Hey, this is the right way.
Right.
I understand you might know how to do this, but this is how we do it here.
Right.
Yeah. And the guy that taught me, that taught us how to roll, he started at that factory when he was 16 years old, and he has never worked anywhere else. He started in the sorting room.
Yep. And then now he's teaching people how to roll.
They moved him out. Yeah, they taught him how to roll, and he became good enough that he's teaching other people how to roll now.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if I had to put an age on this guy, he was probably late 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
26, 28.
Yeah. So, 10 years at the factory.
Yeah.
And, you look around here, like people in the States, they're lucky to last 3 years at a job before they find something else. And there's people that have done nothing but work at that factory their entire lives.
It was cool too when Gonzalo introduced him to us. It was like a proud dad moment. He was like, he learned here and he trains people here. Like he was just like, this is my dude.
Yes.
Yeah, it was cool.
But it was really funny because we did a tour, we got some content, whatever. We get back, hang out. Everyone got whatever drinks they needed and whatever. And I was just, I looked at Gonzalo and I asked him about the table, and he's like, yeah. So I look at these boys and I'm like, well, you guys ready to roll? And they're like, what? I'm like, let's go. And I mean, it's a very interesting process. Obviously there's a language barrier, right? So they're being taught how to roll via charades and my commentary.
Yep.
And I can explain it really well. I'm just not proficient like these guys are. Like I can roll a cigar and it's not horrible. I just can't do it in like 40 seconds like these guys do. It takes me like 5 minutes, Yeah. And so having these guys do it and then learning of the little nuances of how and where they place the tobaccos and what the different folds or rolls are, how they hold it in their hand and why they have pressure certain ways, all of that stuff. Like I feel like this was the perfect way for you guys to learn because you did it and then you roll the cigar and then you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like the ones that they roll.
Yeah. It's a learning curve unlike any other.
Well, that's a great way to have him teach you because you're doing it as he's showing you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. See, I didn't get this.
See, right there, what he was trying to tell you is when you break that end off, you turn it 180 degrees and put it back in.
Yes.
And that, because you break a smooth line and then all the little ends of it that go to next to nothing, that's towards the middle. So you're trying to get the hard lines at the ends of the cigar.
And it's little things like that I never would have thought about when it came to rolling a cigar. Like even where you tear it, it's got to line up correctly.
But see how you turn that leaf around?
Yep.
Left and right leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah. And then, like this is the only quote unquote machine that's used. And essentially it's a big cigarette roller, but it's a hand crank. So it's not even like there's power added to it.
It's the buncher, right? Is that what they call it?
No, the buncher is the bunchero is the guy that sits in that seat.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things that they were trying to explain that it was hard was when you're rolling that forward, the binder leaf that's sticking out, you get about halfway up, and then you actually have to pull that binder leaf, apply pressure on it, because that roller itself will put pressure on the cigar, but towards the end of it, it doesn't. So you have to hold that binder leaf out so that way it rolls, semi-tight. These aren't crazy tight yet. it gets put in the molds, and that's what shapes it a little bit better, compresses everything together. But see how he's holding that leaf right there at the end? Yep. And then you put a little bit of glue, wrap it all up, trim the ends, throw it in the mold.
So it looks like it's about twice as big around right now as it should be.
It's a little oversized.
Yeah, before it gets put in the press. Yeah.
And you kind of gotta, you gotta work to get it in that mold sometimes. Obviously, when they do it, they don't. It's a lot more consistent, uniform.
Yeah,
easier to get in the mold.
Like even putting it in the mold, I was like, oh, I'm gonna fuck this up.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna tear this wrapper. I'm gonna do something wrong.
But it was cool. So we did that. We put them all in the molds, and then we went to lunch, which is kind of cool. We didn't just have to sit there and be like, okay, now we wait 20 minutes. So we put them all in the molds, went to lunch, had a phenomenal lunch. And then we get back, obviously people get coffee, energy drinks, all that kind of stuff. And then we go right back into it again. Your phone's yelling at us.
Oh, fuck Siri.
So
what was she listening to?
I don't know. But so when
she listens to everything.
When we got back from lunch, putting them in the molds, that was when we did the wrapper, right? So this part felt like it was a lot. That putting that one leaf on it, that's the part. That's the one that's the piece that matters big time. Learning how to do it, putting the cigar at the right angle, learning the difference between the left and right leaves, which side you got to roll from. Yeah, learning how to just pick out the perfect part of that leaf that doesn't have any imperfections, but you also have to cut two lines and they have to be uniform the whole way,
right? Or
else the wrapper is going to do this, and then you don't have the nice clean lines,
right?
They're all wavy, all that kind of stuff. Oh Jesus. This is me. I'm like, yeah, fuck this all up.
At least we all went into it with the same expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be zero expectations, and then you're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the shitty part when I sat down to do this is in my brain, I was just like, well, I just explained this to 3 people.
Yeah.
So I better not fuck this up.
So right here, Gonzalo is stopping John to explain to everybody that jewelry is not allowed. When
yeah. Like, you can't wear any of this if you work here. Which I totally understand. Because all it takes is
one slip of a ring and
touches the leaf and you put a hole in it.
Yeah.
Something, So there's a couple different ways to cut. I'm rolling it at this point right now. And the reason why is because nothing was really working right for me. The leaf it was sticking to my hands more than it was sticking to the rolling table.
Yeah.
And so if you try to cut a solid cut, all you do is just tear the leaf.
Right.
And so I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it this way.
And everything he's cutting off of there becomes our dumpster fire.
It does. That's the best part. None of it goes to waste.
Was there any dumpster fire piles drying when you guys were there?
There sure were.
On the patio?
Yep. What's her name? She's awesome.
Marcella,
yeah. She's the QC lady. She's the longest working employee at the
20-something years. Yeah. So every single cigar that goes through this factory, she puts her hands on to make sure that it's perfect.
Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal person.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yep.
And she speaks better English than she'll speak too. She knows what you're saying.
Yeah, but she won't let you know that. No. But so rolling, one of the things I figured out with rolling, as long as the leaf's positioned how you're supposed to do it, that angle that you need to do, essentially point the head of the cigar, because that's what you're rolling. You start at the foot.
Right.
You point that towards your belly button, and that gives you about the right angle that you need to be able to roll that cigar on. And then, so you get all the way up to the top, and then you get a cut. It almost looks like a little D, and that's the bottom line that you see on the head of the cigar. And that's what you're making right there. But you don't want hard lines. Everything you want rounded. You want it to look really nice. So that's why you see me doing a lot of trimming, trying to get all this stuff and get rid of the little holes and whatnot. Because, I was riding the struggle bus a little bit.
But you're not fast, that's for sure.
Not one bit.
They would have done 10, and
but
John's.
I'm not fast, but I was half the time of these guys.
Yeah,
and I was 4 times as long as.
So now, if you
the
look
people in the
as he's
factory.
doing this, if he just left that on there and rolled it up in a little thing,
It'd be a pigtail.
it'd be a pigtail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or other people use them. They call them firecrackers or whatever. Yep. But yeah, so essentially you're just making the head of the cigar right there. And that's the part that you cut to smoke through. And then this is the cap. So you just take a leaf, put a little glue on it. They have a little, like a circle knife. You cut your circle, boop your cigar, boop. I always tear my leaf because I don't cut it the greatest. There's always one little spot. So if I try to pick it up, it never sticks. And then it gets stuck to my other fingers and it turns into a nightmare.
Putting the cap on looks so deceivingly easy.
Yeah.
Until
the way they do
until
it.
you don't put even pressure.
Yeah.
And then you slide it to one side or the other.
And it slides completely off the cigar. And you're like, oh.
When I got to that part, putting the cap on, I was like, oh, this is the easy part. And then I did it and I was like, nope, this is also very difficult.
Yeah, like watching videos of people who know how to do this on a regular basis.
They're so fast.
It makes it look easy until you sit down and do it, and then it takes you 12 minutes to roll a cigar and put a binder or put a wrapper on.
But it's like everything else. Nobody starts as an expert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and no matter how much you understand that, you have to gain that muscle memory.
Right.
You have to build up the consistency to be able to do it the same pressure, the same way every single time.
Yeah.
So for a while, we were thinking about doing a Salomon, and it was explained to us that they're going to be way more expensive because it takes 3 times as long to roll one cigar.
And because of the shape,
even the way you're bunching it, the shape has it's all packed differently.
Yeah.
And then the way you put your wrapper on is completely different. So
everything.
Yep.
And then when you start getting into those weird shapes, you get larger chances of running into construction issues.
Yeah.
Trying to make that.
When's
shape.
the last time you smoked a Salomon that smoked perfectly? They rarely do.
Yeah.
It's not a shape that's conducive.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I smoked a shitload of cigars.
And there's expensive good ones that we've smoked. But
Gonzalo,
when we were thinking about doing one, Gonzalo was like, yeah, it takes 3 times as long to do it. Only my really good rollers know how to do this.
Yeah.
So not only are they taking 3 times the amount of
long,
time,
but you're taking the good guys and making them slower.
But I'm taking the good guys away from making fast cigars, so it's like 6 times the time by the time you factor it all in.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, our night shift, right? There's, I think there's 6 pairs that are trained to roll our night shift. Yeah. So it's 12 people because they work in teams. They call them pairs.
Right.
So 12 people out of that entire factory, the only ones that roll our night shift.
Yeah. Because of the stupid little candela ring.
That's it. But once we saw how they do it and how uniform it is and everything, then we're like, oh yeah. I don't want anybody else doing that. These guys are good,
Yeah. When we saw the bundle that was still wrapped in newspaper laying on the stack, and you could look down the side of it and every single ring was in line with everything.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, that's
right.
It's okay. Yeah.
That one right there.
So it's like when they just lay them all down like that and everything is in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's it's difficult. It really is. But the cool thing was I can't remember how long ago we did this, a couple of years now. We knew that going into one of our trips down there. And so we brought our night shift hats down for all the guys who roll.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool because none of the workers know we're showing up.
Right.
So we walk in there, first thing Tuesday morning, and everybody's just like, oh, it's just another Tuesday. We walk in and they're like, oh, Warfighter's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Wednesday shows up, right? And some of the rollers that were working Wednesday that roll the night shift, they all got their hats on.
Yeah.
And they walk in and they're like waiting for us to notice, you know what I mean? And so Justin ended up getting some videos of one of the guys rolling with the night shift hat on.
Yeah.
And, obviously thank those guys and all that fun stuff. But it's really cool to see the pride that these guys have and what cigars that they make. Like it's not just like, oh, I got to go to fucking work today.
You know what we should do is get them a copy of the half wheel rating to hang up for the night shift.
Oh, down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do something.
Just something like that.
Yeah.
Just to give them the acknowledgement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. This guy right here.
Yeah.
And obviously this wasn't a night shift he was rolling. But it's kind of like I don't know. I'd feel proud if I worked there and I made those cigars, and then the company that I made these cigars showed up and they knew that I was one of the guys. You know what I mean? Like I think it's cool.
Was Crazy Hair there?
No,
I don't think he works there anymore.
I don't think so either. Yeah. But what do you guys think? What's your take on the factory?
Extreme. Like I said, it's so impressive how they've gotten that, what is such a large chunk of what goes into making a cigar, into such a finely tuned process.
Yeah.
But it's also really cool because everybody has like their job. It's like, nope, my job is to roll. My job is to put the wrapper on. Like my job is to package. My job is to band. And they're just like, I'm laser focused on my role in putting this cigar together. That was insane to me.
When you would walk past someone, like the packaging, the ladies at the packaging tables, like they would be packaging and then they'd look up at you and then they'd just go right back to it. They're like, oh, okay, cool. Back to my job. So the efficiency of motion in that building is utterly phenomenal because it's a footprint similar in size to our facility here, but they have 75 or 80 people running around there at any given point.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's like a little bee's nest. There's just workers going everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of walking through, like trying to avoid, I don't want to get in their way.
Yeah.
And
it's not a clean job. Like you're just tobacco everywhere, but about the time you start noticing the floor's a little,
you look up and somebody's sweeping.
Yep, somebody's sweeping it up.
Yeah.
So
Yep. About the time that 4:30 hits, everybody realizes it, and there's like 5 little ladies that are just running around with brooms, just sweeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a cool part to see of like Dave said, 4:30 rolls around, and we'd be like in Gonzalo's office, like consolidating from the day. Like I was putting away camera gear and stuff, and then we'd walk out, and it was just like, it doesn't look like anyone was here today.
Yeah.
Like at 4:58, there are people still at the tables rolling, and at 5 o'clock, you look up and it's gone.
Yeah,
and I was like, they do a hard close at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like so, yeah. And it was nice though knowing this stuff because like we did some content because like I don't want to get in their way.
Yeah,
like these guys like. It would be like me walking into a business here and be like, hey, I know you're busy as shit right now, but let me film this stupid video and I'm going to make it so you can't work, So like we waited and we tried to do stuff like after they worked or when they were at lunch. The hard part when they're at lunch though, is like they have their table set. So when they come back, they go right back into it.
Yeah.
So like I want to film using one of the tables, but I don't want to mess them up.
Right.
I don't want to change their thing, So it's just like I take a picture of it and I'm like, okay, cool. We do whatever we got to do. And I pull the picture up. I'm like, no, that was here. This was there. That leaf. Okay, cool. We're good. We can go.
And they probably still came back from lunch and they're like,
who touched my shit? Yeah. But then, you guys rolled. And then the cool part about that too is you guys got to roll start to finish.
Yeah.
Wrapper binder or binder filler. And then you got to put the wrapper on. And then we got to go smoke those cigars.
Yeah.
And so it was like, normally what we do is we'll watch somebody, in the factory roll a pair roll. And they'll be like, hey, can I grab this? And we're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And they mark it down and make sure it's kind of for. But then we could just pull one that they smoked or they rolled and we go smoke it.
Yeah.
That's a little different because like they know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to roll your own and make those mistakes and not have it absolutely perfect. And then we take it and we go upstairs in the palapa and we all sit in the hammocks, we smoke it and we pay attention to that cigar. And you realize that like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I rolled this and I'm smoking it and it's delicious and it's burning great.
Yeah.
Or
if you notice a problem,
you know what you did.
Then you can
remember.
Like, I put this bunch too close to this other bunch and it got a little tight right there.
Did you guys have issues with the ones you rolled?
I had a tiny issue and it was just it burned crooked a little bit. And I realized that like when I broke it off and flipped it, it was, a little further out than it should have been. Like the fingers, the broken fingers weren't laying in with the leaves below it.
Yeah. So you get like a little hollow spot.
Yeah, there was a tiny little hollow spot where it burned a little slower because it took some time to jump. And, it resulted in the cigar kind of almost canoeing a little bit.
Right.
But that made the connection for me to where like I'm smoking one later and it does that. I'm like, I understand now what it is. It's not necessarily a construction issue. It's just when the Bunchero pulled it down and laid it back in there was a 1/16 of an inch spread there to where it allowed that bit to burn slower and everything else burned a little quicker. And it's like, hey, I get it now, and I understand. So
well, knowing how to do it, if you have a consistent problem, Gonzalo knows who rolled what, like on the,
there's all of our stuffs.
There's a number of who packaged it, who did everything right.
Yeah, who rolled, who packaged.
And so he can go to the one person and be like, hey, whatever you're doing. And they usually catch it in QC anyway. Right?
Yeah.
But the QC lady will go and say, hey, you have to fix whatever the issue is.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like when Marcella and the other guy, I don't think we ever got his name.
Dude, I don't even know my own name sometimes.
When they would identify an issue, like that cigar would get set off to the side, and then there was 2 tables at the back of the factory where there was nothing but people deconstructing cigars because, like we already said, nothing goes to waste. So that cigar that had that minor QC issue that was identified was pulled apart and turned into another cigar.
Yeah,
either the wrapper was taken off and a new wrapper was put on if the Bunchero did their job correctly and everything, and the wrapper had a minor tear in or something that they caught, that wrapper was pulled off and put a new one put on, or it was completely deconstructed and turned into another cigar down the line.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Justin said something really cool. And I think you kind of nailed it when you're talking about how many ways there are to fuck up a cigar.
Oh, unlimited amounts of ways.
Yeah.
And not only to like fuck up the cigar, but like we were talking about, like the fact that like one blend that I smoke today tastes like damn near the same as one that I smoked a year ago. That has unlimited amounts of ways to change both flavor profile, construction, like everything. It still tastes the same, is mind blowing. And then also when y'all broke it down in the fact that there's 4 different like sectors of the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of those different sectors working seamlessly together to still produce a consistent final product.
Yeah, consistent blend.
And each one has 1,000 ways to fuck it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or more.
That's
just that alone is just mind-boggling, because we like anything else, it's like, oh, even if it's just a single point from like construction or whatever, from like any brand out there, like my iPhone that's made by $1 billion corporation, sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we had a recall because this went wrong. Whereas the cigar industry is such a well-oiled machine, it's insane.
Yeah. And there's some people that can't get the consistency.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. So
yeah. Yeah. So we did the after we did the rolling and stuff. That next day we went to the processing facility, and I kind of did it in this order on purpose. So we got to see how everything was processed and sorted, and difference between wrapper, binder, and filler. The processing, how they grade them, how they sort them by color, all the different shades that they look for, all of this stuff. So we go through that whole process, and then we did that in the morning, and then we go to the box factory, check out all that. Learn all the stuff we have to do about that, the final packaging style, part of things. And then we go to lunch, amazing lunch. That was when it was a Cuban restaurant.
Oh, that was so good.
I got, once again, solidified the fact that place has the best smoked chicken I've ever had in my life. Had it 9 years ago, had it again. Yep. Still holds the cake. And then, so after that, we got back from lunch, and I organized it with Gonzalo about blending, and then we sat the boys down and we're like, hey, now that you've learned all this, now you're going to blend your own cigar. And once again, they were like, what? And so we walked out and we had all the different tobaccos laid out on the table. All the different types, whether it's wrapper, binder, filler, from different primings, different areas, regions, different types, a little bit of everything. And at first it was kind of overwhelming. I'm like, cool. I'm like, here we go, guys. I got my notebook. Let me know what you want to do. Wrapper, binder, filler. And then we started going through and looking and playing and smelling and touching and all that kind of fun stuff. And it was probably a good 10 minutes before somebody gave me even a hint of something for a wrapper, binder, filler.
Yeah.
And then it got to, I was hoping that it was going to be that way. Somebody was just like, oh no, I want this, I want that, and I want this. And I'd be like, what? Because my first time, they're like, what kind of cigar do you want? I'm like, a good one. What do you want to taste like? I want it to taste good. I didn't know shit. And so it was about 10 minutes in, and then it got to the point where it's like, okay, guys, what are we stuck on? What do you have questions? Yeah. Where are we looking? What do you want to do? What's the end goal that you're trying to get to? And then we started helping, and Gonzalo was sitting over there, and he gave a little bit of tips and pointers. And then we kind of used a cheat code, and it was just like, hey, look, we already have cigars that are rolled that are either ours or other cigars that the factory makes. I was like, you guys have a general understanding what these taste like.
Yeah.
I was like, to make it easier, you could pick the guts from this cigar and put this wrapper on it.
Right.
Or you could just play around and all these different kind of combinations. I was like, so start using that as you're thinking as well. And then that right there was just like, I feel like everything clicked for you guys. And then you guys move forward with it. And you're like, okay, cool. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was just like, here we go.
Well, the first, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the 10-minute time frame for me, at least personally, I was like, I've been smoking cigars basically since about 6 months after you guys started the brand.
Right.
Because I quit smoking cigarettes, and then you guys started a brand, and now I'm.
And you were like, fuck.
Well, yeah, I can still remember, you guys used to go outside of the shop and sit on the little concrete bench in between the two buildings to smoke a cigar because we couldn't smoke in the building.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it was slow, and you guys were like, I'm gonna go out and have a cigar. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna try one.
Right.
So I was sitting there and I'm thinking back and I'm like, what did I like out of what cigars? What do I remember about the wrappers and binders and fillers that I enjoyed? And so it was trying to place do I want to do this here? Do I want to do it on the inside? Do I want to do it a wrapper or a binder or a filler?
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a general idea. I wanted to use the guts from one particular cigar, the filler from one. And I did, and then I picked the wrapper and the binder for it from other sections. And
so Dave's cigar and the samples that we have are slightly different because we ran out of the wrapper that he wanted.
Yeah, I still have
that original,
about a half a dozen of the original, and those are the ones that are sitting at home.
So he rolled with a Connecticut Oscuro wrapper.
Yeah, a dark Connecticut,
a really dark Connecticut,
and then I used a Cameroon as a binder.
I love the Cameroon.
Yeah.
So.
And
then we used the guts from another.
I used the filler from our Sumatra.
Yeah.
And then Caleb rolled his, and then Justin. And it's funny too because people rolled more what they tend to go towards in smoking.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So Caleb rolled a dark cigar, and it had a little ass behind it. Dave's cigar is really good. I'm gonna put solid medium on it.
Yeah,
and then Justin's cigar is a little bit on the lighter end, but it had great flavor. And he used a Connecticut wrapper as well, but it was more like a natural, like a Connecticut natural.
Right. Yeah.
And then he, used a combination of binder fillers for that one as well. But it was funny because blending typically it more often than not, it doesn't really work out how you want it.
No. one of the first blends I told Gonzalo, I'm like, hey, this is what I want. And he's like, no.
And that was John and I were we were talking later. I think it was later that night. And he's like, I'm really proud of you guys.
Yeah, I sat down at dinner
because
I'm fucking proud of you boys.
and the reason I'm proud of you is he's like, I gave Gonzalo the recipes and he didn't say no.
Yeah.
And then when we smoked them, I smoked each one. I smoked one from each one of the little bundles that we got of their cigars. Either that day or that night.
Yeah.
So very closely after rolling them. And I think the only one that I paid attention when I smoked yours.
Yeah.
Or
No,
there
it
was
was,
one.
it was, it was Caleb's. You spent a lot of time
I
really
spent a lot of
focusing
time
on
with Caleb's. But then there's one of them that we were doing something with when I was smoking. I think it might have been yours.
I think it was mine.
Yeah.
I paid attention to yours as well. But I got down to maybe like, I don't know, at 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches left of the cigar. And I don't know why, but I got a flavor and I looked at it to like figure out what cigar I was smoking because I forget sometimes, you know. And I looked at it and it had the band in it, you know, Liga Justin. And I was just like, oh. And I'm like, hey, sorry I wasn't really paying attention, but I just want to let you know that it's a good cigar because if it wasn't, I would have noticed and said something.
Right.
I was like, but because it was good, I didn't notice. I just kept smoking it until I was like, oh, wow, that's nice. What's this? And then it was.
I took it as a compliment.
Hell, that was supposed to be that way. It was
because I've seen John like smoke a cigar and been
I'm like, whoa, no.
Yeah, like, if it's bad, he'll be like, yeah, this is bad. And the fact that he just lit it up and just didn't say anything, I was like, oh, that's.
But like I did
now, not to shit on your dreams here, but there was once upon a time where we rolled a barber pole,
and we both thought it was
we absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah.
And then it aged for 90 days, and still to this day, it's probably how old? I don't know,
9
years old.
Yeah.
It still sucked. So
Still
Like,
dog turd.
so
I can still
the
remember.
jury's still out until it ages.
So that's what I told him. And I was like, it's good now, boys. I was like, but
Yeah.
the key is after it ages. We'll see.
I can still remember like at least once a year you would go and pull one out because you got a couple of bundles of them to see how they would like actually settle down.
And they've
Like,
lasted a long time.
I think there might, there might still be 3 or 4 left.
It's
floating
not
around back
because
there.
we're saving them for a special occasion.
Oh, it's a special occasion, all right. It's like, oh, here,
Yeah.
why don't you smoke that one?
Well, luckily too, they were awesome, and they did like the first batch was like 10 of all of our
Yeah.
blends, and then they made us another bundle, so we'll have to bring them in after they age.
Well, I
And-
can't remember one of you guys, and I kept telling you guys all the time. I'm like, if you want cigars, just ask Gonzalo. Like, if they're not here, we're out of the cigars we're smoking at in the office. Ask him, and we'll get this in. We'll smoke them. Like, we're here. Like, don't feel like you can't do something. You know what I mean? Like, we're pretty much free reign to do whatever we want to do while we're there. And so
Redecorate the office.
and we did.
We did.
But so for instance, like I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked Gonzalo to roll another 10.
I asked him.
Okay.
I asked him if
And I didn't
if
care
we
who
could.
it was.
Yeah.
And so Gonzalo comes to me, and just so I'm aware, and he's like, hey, we're gonna roll. And I was like, no. I was like, make it another 20, do a whole nother bundle for everyone.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And he put, and so that way when you blend something and you roll it and you gotta let it age, you kind of start at like 30 days. You pull one, you're like, let's see if it's ready. You smoke it. Ooh, nope, that's still a little young.
Yeah.
And so if you only had 10, you'd probably go through 4 of them just trying to see when it's ready.
Yeah.
Because things were dark and light.
For the listeners, I know we've talked about it, but for the listeners, you can smoke them initially and they're great. A fresh rolled cigar is awesome. But because
24 hours.
because they re-wet them, they start to ferment again.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have to give it that 30, 60, 90 days to see what it's going to ferment together and finally taste like.
Once all the tobaccos, the flavors marry each other.
Because when you're about 10 days into a rolled cigar, it is terrible because it's all ammonia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had one of those when we were at Josh and Sins. I pulled it out of the cellophane. It wasn't mine. It was another one that was
that was one of the
I
test
grabbed.
blends.
Yeah, it was a test blend
It was
that I
just really
grabbed. I cut it and I dry drawed and I was like, nope. And I slid it right back in the cellophane. I looked at Josh. I was like, what do you suggest, man?
Yeah.
Like this one needs a couple more weeks.
Speaking of that,
please.
did you guys put those? I know you're aging yours at home. Right?
Yes.
Where'd you put? Did you put yours in here? Or did you got them at the house?
I've got them at the house, but
Cool.
I need to bring them in because
Wherever you want. As long as they maintain consistent the whole time.
yes, yeah. I'm gonna bring mine in tomorrow. I'm still like fumbling around back at home after the trip, so like I finally got him out of the suitcase, but now I need to bring him in and drop him in the humidor.
All the cigars that I brought back, they're all in the humidor, and my laundry is clean. Other than that, my life's still a shit show.
That's basically where I am. Like
Yeah.
I put mine in the humidor and I did a little laundry and I'm like, all right, now I got a stopping point and where do I go from here?
Yeah, now I'm gonna sleep.
Yeah. Oh, that bed was so nice.
Yeah. Speaking of sleep,
Yeah.
let's talk about let's just quickly cover, because then we can go for a long time, but quickly cover lodging and food.
Yeah.
I've got pictures. I'm just loading them up. real
Okay.
quick.
So my whole goal when we go down there is if I can get it in America, I don't want it
Yeah.
But we did stop at the new McDonald's one time. And it was also because we were hungover.
Yeah.
And I was like, this will work for us. But I always try to go local. We actually didn't do lunch a single time at the factory. We went out every day. Went to new places, didn't go anywhere twice. Obviously we've been going there for a while. So you and I are kind of well versed on, what we order, what we like, what's good, where to go, that kind of stuff. But I do have to say, good job for you guys kind of coming out of your comfort zones a little bit with some of the food that we ordered. Because, it took Justin towards the end. I think the one time where everything changed for Justin is we went to lunch, and it was where Caleb got that really good sandwich. You ordered the quesadilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like, I was looking at everything and I was just like, nothing's really like speaking to me. And then I just was like, fuck it, quesadilla. And then Caleb we were just like a little cafe. It was like different, but it wasn't like the Cuban restaurant.
Yeah. It was
like
a coffee shop and they had food.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It was good food though.
But Caleb was just like, this panini is changing my life. And I'm sitting over there like an asshole with
totally
my fucking... I was just sitting there feeling like an asshole because I had my fucking cheese quesadilla. I was like, I'm doing this wrong.
There's times I'll be at a restaurant, I'll just close my eyes and go like this. And I'm like, yep, that's what I'm getting. Like,
I ordered a salad just because I wasn't feeling anything heavy. And it was just beautiful. Just beautiful salad. Yeah. And Justin was sitting across me with this cheese quesadilla, and he's like, fuck this. Whatever you order from now on out, I'm just getting that.
Yep. It saved me because I wasn't having to like take a picture of the menu and translate it and everything. I'd just be like, John, what are you getting? And he'd be like, this. I'm like, fucking cool.
Yeah, that was a saving grace. Like if you hover over the menu with your iPhone now, it gives you the option to translate that page so you actually know what you're getting.
Yeah. Just on the camera app. You don't have to take a picture or anything. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
hey sir, before you smoke that, we got a new one we want you to try.
Yeah, we got Rich Dirks who just blessed us with his presence today while we're recording. Sorry we didn't get up and say hi, but we'll do it as soon as we get done. But yeah, we got one for you. And then like lodging wise,
you guys talk about this.
Okay, yeah, lodging wise, we stayed at this hotel called Aquarius. Which driving there, we're driving up this shitty cobblestone road
that changed to dirt the last like 500 yards.
Yeah, and directly across the street from the hotel is the prison, which was hilarious to see on Valentine's Day.
Oh my God, that was great.
Oh yeah, everybody dressed up for their conjugal visits.
To go see people locked up. It was. I appreciated it.
I think the joke when we were headed back to the hotel that night was how many kids left the prison. That
a lot more than that.
One thing that was crazy about that is every day when we'd like leave or come back, if there were visits going on, I didn't even think about it. But John was saying how like it's not like you can't put money on your person's books.
They don't have a commissary there, so like if you want food, your family brings it to you.
Yeah, like that was crazy.
It's a very interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
But did you guys ever feel not safe? At any point?
No.
Throughout the whole entire time we were there, any of the places that we went?
No,
not once.
No.
It's I don't know if that's because we've done it a lot and we stay away from the bad areas, but I like to explore, and I haven't found anywhere exploring that.
Or the fact that we had the two biggest gringos in the country with us at any.
Well, I mean, that always helps. That always helps.
Even when we were walking around downtown, I was like, I know if I sandwich myself between John and Caleb, nobody's coming after my small ass.
And then all you have to do is outrun Dave. So
you're the cream filling in the 500-pound Oreos.
I damn right I did.
Oh, I wish it was 500. It's a 600-pound Oreo. But yeah, so this is where we stayed. Essentially, we had a whole house. There's 4 rooms in this building, and we took over that whole building.
Cool.
And that was the coolest thing. Like every room essentially was its own little setup.
It was like an apartment.
Yeah.
Like a chair, TV, bed, dressers, a big bathroom, walk-in shower. Like that was nice. And then we had breakfast every morning. And I'm a huge fan of the just traditional Nicaraguan breakfast: scrambled eggs, red beans and rice, that salty cheese that I can't never remember the name of.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of crema, and then
the maduros.
Yeah, and then the sautéed plantains.
Yeah, whatever fruit they bring out.
We only got fruit like 2 days. And they stopped bringing fruit. I was like, what the fuck?
I think part of it was that like the first day we were there, they brought a massive plate of fruit for every single person. And it was mangoes and pineapple and watermelon. And I was just like, and then they brought breakfast. I was like, this is, and John hit on it because he's like, the first day you're here, they try to feed you like a gringo would be fed.
Yeah.
And it's so much fucking food. And by the end of the time we were there, like we got the traditional Nicaraguan breakfast serving.
Yeah.
And
which is perfect.
Oh,
that's all.
It's totally perfect.
It was great.
Yeah.
But so the place we were staying, I mean, this place, it is beautifully landscaped and manicured.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like Mal's a huge plant person. So I spent
probably 4 hours.
The whole week, probably 4 hours on FaceTime with her. And she's going, no, put your hand up next to it. How big's that leaf? Go, oh, what's that one? Ooh, there was one in the background. What was that? You know, and I'm going over. And it's all this stuff that we have a lot of this stuff at the house. Except like Mal buy this plant, it's like this big and it's like $250, right? And it grows wild there. And so I told her, I was like,
or they treat it like a weed down there.
Yeah, right. And they're like, get rid of
it's
this
in
shit.
the corner.
But it was super cool. They had like monkeys. There's an alligator. Like they have all kinds of animals on the property as well. It was just amazing. It was beautiful. So we had a really good time with that. And then, so we left Esteli after spending a couple days, 5 days down there. And we went down to San Juan del Sur just to kind of decompress before we came back.
Yeah.
So much information got thrown at these guys, while we were there up in Esteli from all the different processes that we saw. And then we saw everything. The only thing we didn't see is them planting the seeds in the little flower beds and picking the flowers to grow them into seedlings. Yeah. Other than that, we went pretty much seedling to cigar in every single process that consists of that.
And it was very cool because when we toured the farm, Gonzalo had made a very clear point that they do what they call deflorada, which is they clip the flower off of the top of the plant. That way, that's where
the flowers rob nutrients.
Yeah, so it keeps the nutrients in the base of the plant and it pushes the rest out to the leaves, which is what we need.
Yeah.
But when we got there, I saw immediately that they had a few plants that they had flowers on, and it's because Gonzalo said that was all the factory's seeds. So that plot was all the factory's seeds, and they were keeping some of the flowers specifically for seed production.
Right.
Yeah. So every crop they do that, and they keep the seeds, and that's the next crop they grow.
Yeah. So it was very cool to be able to see that, like
this area we were growing is very unique though, because tobacco plants naturally cross-pollinate. Everything in the world, their end goal in life is to reproduce. If you're a living thing on this planet, your goal in life is to reproduce. Humans are a little different because we think differently. Ultimately, our goal is to reproduce. If we don't exist anymore, right?
Our goal as humans is to practice reproducing.
Now, it used to just be to reproduce. That was it. Now we just practice a lot. And
practice makes perfect.
Right. Well, I could argue that depending on looking at today's population, but
well, so far Justin's practice has turned out perfect because his little one is adorable.
Yeah. But so with the plants, the tobacco plant, its only sole purpose in growing is to produce that flower, put all the nutrients in it as strong as it can, and make more.
Right.
So when you cut that off, instead of shoving all the nutrients to produce, now it spreads it out through the rest of the plant, and that's what adds the flavors and the depth and everything into that tobacco. When you keep these plants for the flowers, there's a way that you can do it where you can still harvest the leaves, but you also get to harvest the seeds. And so you do it essentially before it gets pollinated. But what happens though is if there's other types of tobacco being grown next to these ones, it will naturally cross-pollinate.
Right.
And then eventually you just get this crazy hybrid if you don't pay attention or you just keep planting random shit next to each other. So we had 4 huge fields. They were all planted with the same amount. And the seeds were from the center of one field that were protected by trees. So nothing, and even though it was all the same crop, it was a very, very slim chance that anything could cross-pollinate based on where other tobaccos were planted.
Right.
And that's why they had them in that specific area.
Yes.
And only those specific plants.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes what they do is they actually wrap cheesecloth around it
Oh, to capturing
to help
anything.
protect against anything touching it.
Right.
They just weren't there. Mm-hmm. Essentially, they look around at the other fields to see if anything's going on that way with the flowers and stuff, and that decides if they wrap it or not. Nothing else was being grown around. We were at least in the right stages, so they just, you know,
and you get a lot of seeds from one plant.
Oh,
so it doesn't
and they're really small. But yeah, so we go down to San Juan del Sur, and essentially it was by design, and that was to give a day or two to let everything that we just had learned sink in. Because if you leave Esteli with all that, your brain's going 1,000 miles a minute, and you get back on the plane, now you're thinking about all the stuff you got to do when you get home, and trying to process everything that you just learned. Like it's a lot, right? So we spent a couple of days just chilling, decompressing, debriefing everything that we just experienced, smoking more cigars, talking with more people, all that kind of stuff. And then by the time we got to the airport and on the plane, it was like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh my God, it was a dead fucking sprint.
Yeah. And and I've said this before on the recap that we did down there, like I never felt rushed in anything that we did down there. Like the pace was quick, but it was steady enough that I still felt like everything that we did, I was able to retain something from it.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean, it was a lot. We had next to no downtime.
Yeah.
I mean, during business hours.
Yeah. And if it was downtime, it was downtime because it was like, oh, well, they haven't set up to do this yet. Or,
or we're waiting on this for the next step. Yeah.
It's 2:00 and we're not scheduled to be there until 2:30 and it's a 15-minute drive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was a little bit more in depth. I mean, we could talk for probably another 5 hours. About everything that we did, because it was just so much. It really was. But the good thing is we have a shitload of content. We have a lot of like kind of behind the scenes type stuff of like how things are done, a little explanation behind it. And so we're working on putting a really nice video together, kind of a factory tour type deal. And then kind of like, hey, this is just kind of how our trip went. So these videos will be trickling out soon. Obviously if you guys have been paying attention on our social media, we put out a lot of like stories and stuff like that while we were there, which is kind of like almost like a trailer of what the video is going to be.
Yeah.
But just we've been going for a little bit right now. Do you guys have any final thoughts, closings, anything that you want to say about the trip? Or, I know I sat down with you guys almost every night and I'm like, questions, comments, concerns. What can we do better? What can we do worse? And you guys gave me really good feedback throughout all of that. But now that we're back and you've processed everything, you had a couple nights of sleep after, what's the final thoughts on everything that you guys experienced and learned and whatnot?
Oof.
Yeah, it's still so much. Like there's so much to process. Like it's hard to nail down anything in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about this trip was phenomenal. It was like, if you're going to do one trip and you're interested, or if this is like, if cigars are something that you really enjoy, you need to be able to do something like this.
Yeah.
You need to be able to see it, because it does, like, it's not necessarily pulling the curtain back, but it gives you a definite appreciation for everything that is involved in the process, for the thing that you take for granted, essentially. I mean, a lot of people, cigars are just cigars, and being able to see it essentially start to finish, it changes your outlook on it.
Yeah.
I didn't like, I've been with you guys since the inception of the company, and I've always heard, I've caught a lot of the debriefs, and, you talk about this, that, and the other thing. So I kind of had an understanding, but it made everything click for me, and it changed my outlook on the cigars. Like I smoked one of our Shade Lanceros for breakfast this morning, and I told him, it was like, I forgot how fucking good it was.
Right.
and part of it is because I have that new appreciation, that new understanding for the cigar. So it's as I'm smoking it, I'm like, okay, now everything is clicking.
Like, so now I don't want to jump in front of you and cut you off, but I just want to throw something in real quick. We, in earlier episodes and a lot of other stuff, and we've done a lot on social media, and not a shitload, but we covered kind of the basics when it comes to like customs and etiquettes with smoking. And the simplest way to break down why there's customs and etiquettes and things that kind of do's and don'ts, things you should and shouldn't do with cigars. It really has nothing to do with the experience of how you smoke it. It has to do with respecting that cigar and the process that it went through to become a cigar.
Well,
you know, when you snuff that thing out and you're just like, there's so much work that got put into that. Like, yes, there's multiple reasons. One is like it breaks up the tobacco, it brings more oxygen into it, and it actually creates more smoke. That's like the scientific reason not to do it. The right reason is like you get done smoking that cigar, right? And you set it down and it's almost like a thank you, like, hey, thank you.
Right.
I appreciate you. Now it's time for you to rest. Do you know what I mean?
It's like, you know, if, you know, you talked about just stomping it out.
Yep.
Like, to me now, having seen the process, it's disrespecting every single person that put their time and effort into that cigar.
Right. Like imagine you're sitting in front of that roller and you're like, hey man, this is a great cigar. And you're like, yeah. Like, what do you think the look on that? He's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, Jess. I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, I'm kind of going to echo that sentiment. The number one thing that I picked up from this trip was just, I have so much more appreciation because I've gotten to see so much of the process and how much time, sweat, effort, like everything goes into just a single cigar.
The sweat part's just because they don't have AC in a
well,
place.
yeah.
It's not really like a lot of manual labor. Like there is
some places.
Yeah.
But like I just have so much more appreciation for that fact. And like I think I will never smoke a cigar the same again.
Yeah.
No.
Like the next time I pick up one to smoke, I'm gonna be like, oh, I wonder how much went into this one in particular. Like what changed on this one? Like it's so hard to put into words.
Yeah.
And it sounds corny, but I've never had such an experience that kind of like I feel like attached to it now. That I've gotten to like insert myself in how everything works.
It's like I like cigars. Yeah. Now I love the process.
But you appreciate it.
Yeah.
So not to change gears a little bit here, but so is Warfighter ready to do like formal tours for our customers?
Like if you weren't an employee.
Oh, I would have.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really feel like an employee for this show. It was that cool. Like it was just like everywhere we went, it just felt like it was like a learning experience. Yeah. It wasn't like there was never any point where I'm like, oh, I need to get this. So like we need to have this content so we can put it out. It was just like, this is fucking awesome. I want to get a photo or a video of this or because there was like certain ones where I'd pull John and be like, hey, give me a quick little like 30, 60 second breakdown of this. Cause I'm just excited to get that information out to other people so they can have a little bit of insight. Like to be honest with you, at no point was it it felt like a work trip. It was like, this is so fucking cool that I get to be here and like, I get to like record all this and take a picture of this.
Well,
like,
and that's one of the things, like, you know, John had said, you know, he'd sit down with us at the end of the day, you know, questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. And I could tell that, you know, because I've known John for what, 5-6 years now, at least.
Almost 10.
Almost, Jesus.
Yeah.
I guess time flies when you're having fun.
Right.
You know, I know how that Rolodex inside your brain pan works. And I know that like you know, every comment that we made, you know, you were watching us as we were out, you know, watching everybody else do their thing. You were adding cliff notes to that line. So you've got your agenda basically built. And you had said that this was almost a test run to see, you know, if it was something. And I have full confidence that we can take other people down, customers, retailers, anybody, and they will come out of it with the exact same appreciation that Justin and I have with it now too. And Caleb as well, I'm sure.
Right. Like the two big takeaways that I got from it, if I was hosting like a group, were the two big travel days we had, because they sucked so
that was
I will change that.
Rolling out of the bed at honestly, 2 o'clock in the morning.
I feel like you guys missed out on staying in Managua one day.
And so we went there for lunch as we were leaving. Okay. So I got to show them everything. Nice. And I'm like, now that we've done it, this is why we stay here the first night.
Yeah. But it's it's like we said halfway through, you know, had we not done that, you would have not known.
That, and we would have lost another day at the factory.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, normally we fly in, Sunday to Sunday. This trip we did Monday to Monday. And so usually Monday midday, we're at the factory working.
Yes.
We didn't get to the factory till Tuesday morning. Yeah. So even with this, we lost a half a day.
Yeah. So it would have been the same.
But it made it that much busier the rest of the week.
Because if you left in the morning on Tuesday morning, you would have been there by noonish.
Yeah, but then we would have lost a full day versus coming in on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And technically being a work trip, the amount of work we got done that morning,
it's stupid.
we still made up that half day that we would have lost. And if it would have been more of a tour style trip, that half day really wouldn't have mattered necessarily.
Yeah.
So, it is a trade-off, but
I know at one point towards the end, Justin looked at me and he's just like, "You're a really good host." Fucking try it.
It's true. Every piece that we hit, there wasn't a dull moment. It was both like relaxing and like comfortable, but also like educating.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I didn't feel like anything was forced.
I feel like an important part of the trip is to be in the culture a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like, I hear of other cigar factory tours where they lock you down on their compound and you don't really get to go out in the population. I
get it.
I get it too, but
I get it.
But I feel like, man, you're missing out on.
Well, the reason I get it is because so we went out a couple nights, right? And one night we stayed out really late and we got pretty drunk. You know what I mean? But I was there and I wasn't as drunk as everybody else because it's like, okay, somebody still needs to maintain a bit of responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if somebody gets rowdy, something goes south, you know what I mean? Like somebody needs to be able to figure out how to get out of the situation that we're in and make sure everybody's still safe. And that was always the end goal that was in my mind, or always something in the back of my mind. And so even when we went out, like I know you didn't end up going out with us that night, but you went out with us the night prior, or to the couple nights prior.
Yes.
And we hung out. We were out till 11 or midnight or so. And it just wasn't that busy, so we weren't going to stay.
Yeah.
But like the Friday night that we all went out, like we got pretty tore up. And but like, did you guys? Was it ever not safe? Did you guys ever feel like worried or like, you know what I mean?
No, not for the only time I felt unsafe was when I was trying to walk down those stairs. hammered off my ass. Yeah. That was the only time, but that was to my own doing.
One step and he's like, whoa. And he looks at me, he's like, I'm pretty drunk. I'm like, I know.
He tells me the next morning, he's like, I didn't think I was that bad. I only had like one beer and like 4 drinks. I was like, yeah, but that's 4 more than you ever usually have.
Yeah.
And it was rum. It wasn't like the beers like he's not drinking.
That night we went out with the intention of like, let's just see where the night It was the day before we were going to San Juan. Yep. And so it was just like we don't have to get to the factory early. Like we leave when we leave tomorrow. Yeah. And so like
we had a loose agenda, but we didn't even come close to hitting it.
Yeah. And so like I'm drinking my Tonya Ultra, which looks just like Michelob. So I was like, yeah, let me try that. Also, Tonya beer, not bad, fucking solid. And so like I'm drinking those, and at one point during the night, John just looks over at me, and I was gonna go to the bar to get another drink. He was like, "Justin, grab a glass. You're drinking rum with us tonight." And I was like, "Oh, this is my first time getting drunk with John."
Well, so we ended up going. There's pretty much 2 bars you go to: Famous and Bliss.
Yeah.
So we started at Famous, and it was pretty busy, and we had some drinks. We're like, you know what? It's like, I don't know, 11. I think it was about midnight, and we were just like, screw it, let's go to Bliss. There'll be, they're people there by now because the bars don't get busy until like 2 a.m. And then they don't close until people are done drinking. It's not like, oh, it's 3 o'clock, everybody out. You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, people stop spending money. Okay, now we're closed. Yeah. And so we go over to the other bar and we walk into the bar to go to order drinks. And actually, Kamish, the Kevin from New England Cigar Militia, they have a little VIP section upstairs, and I guess he was looking down, or I don't even know how he saw us. I mean, probably because Caleb and I are the 2 largest people that walked into that bar ever. And so I'm like trying to get the bartender's attention to order, because we just get a bottle of rum and 1 beer.
Yeah.
And so Kevin comes down. He it's like, hey, bro. He's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? He's like, come upstairs. So we went up there and we ordered a bottle up there. And I think that's when you switched to rum. Because
I switched to rum at Famous.
Oh, okay.
So I think I had a
that
glass
makes way
or two.
more sense now.
And then we got there and fucking drank. And now I thought it was fun because I was like, oh, I'm gonna get drunk with John. No, I just got drunk in the presence of John. And so that was an eye-opening experience.
It's similar to when me and my boys were down there. they got drunk in the presence of Dad.
Yeah. John still executed his host duties phenomenally.
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
I did get to call dinosaurs in a foreign country though, so that was cool.
Yeah.
I've never not done it. I think every foreign country I've gone to. So
He even echoed you with an NFG experience. He got it all down the side of the truck.
Yeah, the truck got a new paint job.
to be fair, that was my own truck.
Yes.
This one we just handed the keys back and we were like, this is someone else's problem.
The funny thing is they didn't say a word about it.
Really?
Not a word. They looked at everything else and they were just like, and it was so funny too. So like, just
They're like,
real quick.
better the pukes on the outside than the inside.
I know,
We're good
right?
with
But
this.
just real quick, like when I went to pick up the rental car, like, okay, and the lady spoke great English. She's
Yeah.
like, she had a scripted thing
Yeah.
and everything, but she's like, okay, we're gonna go around, we're gonna mark all the damage on the vehicle. And she's like, I already marked what I saw. Let me know if you need to add anything else. And I looked at the paper and it was literally like the outline of a vehicle and the whole fucking thing was scribbled in
Yeah.
dots and stuff everywhere.
Every panel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. And so we go around it. So then when I get back, I mean, obviously I didn't hit anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we get back and she's like going over it, like comparing it and everything. And I'm like, lady. And I'm like, okay, let me see what you got. And it was nothing. Perfect. She's like, okay, thanks. Have a good one. I'm like, awesome. But yeah, that was really funny. But yeah, so that whole drive to San Juan, it was a little rough.
You didn't get dinged for smoking in it?
No, because so when we left San Juan del Sur, I had a breakfast cigar, but nobody else did.
Yeah.
And so that was it. And by the time we got there, we had the windows down a little bit the ways and stuff. So I wasn't worried one bit. They didn't say a word. The only thing they asked is like, did you put diesel in the whole time? Oh I didn't tell you. I thought we almost ran out of gas on the way up to Esteli from Managua, right? So we start driving. We're getting up there, and we're probably like 30 kilometers from the outdoor bathroom gas station.
Okay.
We stop at every trip, right? It's about an hour and a half outside of Esteli. And it's about that time you're like, okay, I got to pee, you know? So we're like 30 kilometers before that, and the gas light turns on. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, boys, we got to find a gas station. I'm like, this gas light just came on. I was like, it still says full.
Right.
I was like, but the needle hasn't moved. And I was like, I wonder if the gas gauge is broke. And they said it was full and it's really fucking empty. And I'm about to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere in Nicaragua. And I'm like, it's not like there's AAA or a gas station I could walk to. It's 30 kilometers away. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay, I hope we make it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm starting to stress at this point. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck do I do if we run out of gas here? You know, like I can call Gonzalo. What's he going to do? We're fucking 3 hours away from him, you know?
Yeah.
Pay somebody $10 for a ride.
Exactly. That's kind of where I was. But I was just like, I don't want this to be like, hey, welcome to Nicaragua. We just ran out of gas. And so we get to the gas station. I'm like, oh, thank God. I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, boys, the bathroom's right there. Careful. It's outdoors. It's a little weird. But grab whatever snacks you guys want. I'm going to make sure we got fuel, and then we can head back up to Nicaragua. So I pull up and I talk to the guy, and I'm like, fill it up. You know what I mean? I'm like, whatever. I put $1.41 of gas in. And I was like, what? I'm like, hey, at least I know I got a full tank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The gas light stayed on the entire time.
Wow.
So when I dropped it off, that was like the one thing. Like they get in, they look at everything, they inspect the whole vehicle, and then they call somebody else over and he's looking at stuff, and then they pop the hood and they're looking under the hood. And then the lady walks up and she's like, you put diesel in the whole time, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's a diesel vehicle. Like, you know, I have a diesel in the States. And she's like, okay. So what I'm thinking is the people before me might not have put diesel in it, and it tripped it. But it's a Toyota Hilux. I mean, I guarantee you I could have pissed in that gas tank and the thing would have ran.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was I was a little. That was like the one time of the trip where like, so I get this fancy Garmin watch. It tracks all my shit. So that night when I was laying in bed, I get on and I look at my heart rate, and it was like normal. And it was like 140 for like 30 minutes, and then it was back to normal.
Yeah, I had kind of the same experience, except my light didn't come on. My needle just never moved. So I'm like, fuck, does this thing work?
Right.
You know? And
But they just sip gas.
Yeah.
That's it.
like the average speed is 60 kilometers an hour.
I
so
drove-
you're getting really efficient.
I drove because I reset it once I filled up. So I don't know how long I drove between Managua and that gas station.
Yeah, that might have been what, 100 kilometers?
Maybe, but when I turned it in, I put like somewhere between 650 700 kilometers on the vehicle, plus whatever that was. But I filled it, so whatever, and it was only $1 something in fuel, and it's like $6 a gallon for diesel.
Yeah.
And I only used a half a tank of fuel.
Yeah.
The whole entire trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, topping it off, you put $50 in.
That's just expensive. But yeah, it was only
it was like 9 gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
It was because I remember looking at it when we filled up, it was 44.5 liters.
44 and a half. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know it's 44.3 Cordoba per liter, which is like $1 and change a liter. And there's 3.75-ish liters in a gallon. And so you math it out and you're like, fuck, this is expensive. Like twice the price of fuel here.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuel and electricity are expensive there. Tape is free.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. The duty free on the way out, like he used about 8 feet of tape on the box.
Yeah. Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this thing up. You guys
Yeah.
listen to us talk about this long enough. The final thought, you do it again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, absolutely.
Do you wish you were still there?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's cold as fucking Texas right now.
It was 26 degrees this morning.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Cool. Well, for all the listeners out there, stay tuned to all our social medias. If you're not following us on Facebook, Instagram, you should go check it out. Definitely make sure you go follow Warfighter Tobacco on YouTube, because these videos are going to be so long. That's where the whole video is going to get released. The rest of the short clips, the trailers, we're going to throw those out on social media and drive traffic to YouTube, because we can't put a 6-minute video on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and 6-minute video on Facebook probably take us a week to upload if it actually gets done. So make sure you follow us on YouTube so you can see all this awesome content that we got, and in-depth explanations about how this entire process works. But yeah, you guys, anything else you want to chime in before we cut this off?
No.
Nope. Till next time, boys.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to warfightertobacco.com for all your smoky treat needs. And stay tuned for some really cool shit we got coming soon. Talk to you guys later.